In a boardroom high above the city skyline, where glass walls reflected the power of money and ambition, a single moment of cold refusal changed everything. A black single father, dressed in his best suit bought on sale, extended his hand across the polished table. The CEO looked at it, then looked away. No words, no courtesy, just silence that cut deeper than any insult. That handshake never happened. And within months, a company worth hundreds of millions was gone. Before we go further into this story that still echoes through boardrooms and living rooms across America, take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to Whispers of Heart 0.2, and drop a comment about a time kindness, or the lack of it, changed your path. Your support keeps these true-to-life stories coming. Marcus Reed had never asked for an easy life. Raised by a hard-working mother in a modest neighborhood outside Atlanta, he learned early that respect was earned through action, not given freely. By the time he was 28, he was a single dad to a bright-eyed 6-year-old named Jordan. The boy's mother had left when Jordan was 2, chasing a life Marcus couldn't provide at the time. He didn't chase her. He stayed. He worked 2 jobs, studied nights, and built a small tech consulting firm from the kitchen table of a rented apartment. Kindness was his quiet fuel. He treated every client like family, stayed late to help a struggling employee, and never forgot the people who had given him a chance when no one else would. Word of Marcus's honesty and results spread. A major venture firm took notice. They invited him to pitch for a massive partnership that could scale his company and secure Jordan's future. The meeting was set in a gleaming tower in downtown Chicago. Marcus flew in the night before, rehearsing his presentation while Jordan slept on a fold-out couch in a budget hotel. He ironed his only good suit twice. He practiced the handshake in the mirror, the same firm, respectful grip his mother had taught him. The CEO of the firm was Richard Hale, a man whose name appeared in business magazines and whose net worth was measured in the hundreds of millions. Richard had built his empire on sharp deals and sharper edges. He believed manners were optional when money was on the table. When Marcus walked into the conference room, the air felt colder than the air conditioning. Richard's team sat in a row. Marcus stood, smiled, and offered his hand across the table the way he had done 1,000 times before. Richard looked at the outstretched hand. He looked at Marcus's face. Then he folded his own hands on the table and said, almost casually, "Let's just get started." No greeting, no acknowledgement. The refusal hung in the room like smoke. Marcus's smile stayed, but something inside him shifted. He delivered the pitch anyway. Clear numbers, real growth, a vision that made 2 of the partners lean forward. When it was over, Richard simply nodded and said they would be in touch. Marcus left the building with his dignity intact and his heart heavier than the briefcase in his hand. That night, in the hotel room, Jordan asked why Daddy looked sad. Marcus pulled his son close and said, "Sometimes people forget that a handshake is more than a hand. It's a promise that you see the other person as equal." He didn't tell the boy the full story. He simply held him a little longer. What Richard Hale didn't know was that Marcus had already been in quiet talks with another group of investors, men and women who valued character as much as capital. Among them was an older black entrepreneur who had once been refused entry to a country club simply for the color of his skin. That man had listened to Marcus's story over coffee weeks earlier and said, "If they can't shake your hand, they don't deserve your work." When news of the Chicago meeting reached him, he made a call. Within 48 hours, the alternative investors moved. They offered Marcus $300 million in funding, more than enough to grow his company without the cold boardroom that had dismissed him. Marcus accepted. He expanded carefully. He hired people who had been overlooked. He paid them fairly. He still showed up early and stayed late. Jordan watched his father treat the janitor with the same respect he gave the new executives. The company flourished. Clients came because the work was excellent and because people felt seen. Richard Hale's firm, meanwhile, began to feel the quiet loss. The partnership they had dismissed became a rising force in the market. Contracts that once flowed easily to Richard's company started going elsewhere. Rumors spread in industry circles about the handshake that never happened. Employees who had witnessed the moment grew uneasy. Some left. Investors grew restless. Within a year, the firm that had seemed unshakable was bleeding money. A major client pulled out, citing values misalignment. Stock value dropped. By the 18-month mark, The company that once controlled $300 million in active funding had collapsed into bankruptcy proceedings. Richard Hale sat alone in a smaller office, staring at an empty conference table, wondering when the air had grown so thin. Marcus never celebrated the fall. When journalists called asking for comment, he simply said, "I hope every person in that room learns that kindness costs nothing and its absence can cost everything." He used part of the new funding to start a scholarship fund for single parents pursuing education and business. He named it after his mother. Jordan, now a little older, helped design the logo. Years later, Marcus still shakes every hand offered to him, firmly, warmly, looking the other person in the eye. He teaches Jordan the same. He tells his son that power without kindness is just noise, and that the smallest gesture of respect can open doors no amount of money can force. Across the country, people who heard the story began paying closer attention to the quiet moments. The way they greet the cashier, the coworker whose ideas they once talked over, the stranger whose hand they almost didn't take. Kindness is not weakness. It is the quiet strength that holds families, companies, and communities together when everything else falls away. In a world that often rewards the loudest voice and the coldest calculation, choosing to see another person fully, offering that simple handshake, can rewrite an entire future. Marcus Reed proved it. His son lives it. And every one of us carries the same power in our open hands. So the next time someone reaches toward you, reach back. You never know whose life or whose legacy you might be holding.